Welcome to Unqualified Advice, the show where we try to make sense of business, investing, and life with just enough experience to get ourselves in trouble.
I'm Sean, and he's Dan. We both started different careers, Dan in IT, climbing the ranks to Chief Technology Officer in New York, and me in manufacturing, managing production quality across 3 countries.
At some point, we both decided we didn't know enough. So we went back to school for our MBAs. Me at Columbia Business School, and Sean at the University of Houston downtown.
And after all that, we figured the best way to share what we've learned and what we're still figuring out is to start a podcast.
So, if you like deep dives into decision-making, business strategy, and the occasional half-baked investing theory,
or just enjoy listening to 2 guys challenge each other's ideas and occasionally admit when we're wrong,
you're in the right place. Welcome to Unqualified Advice.
Morning, Sean. Sorry, I'm coming off a cold. I'm coming off of like a 2 weeks worth of just sickness in my house, and you can still hear it.
One of those classic sweep through all the kids, all the parents type things.
Kids first and then up. You know.
Yep, goes uphill to upper management every time. Every damn time, I swear. You can't sneak anything by upper management these days.
Sneaky.
Yeah. Well, ni hao.
Yeah, I was gonna say, welcome back stateside.
Yeah, thanks. I'm catching up on my sleep still from a couple weeks abroad, but I'm basically back to normal at this point. So,
give us a recap.
Places. I got to go to all over Eastern Asia, I guess you would say, Northeastern Asia, from Shanghai to Chengdu in China, and then back over from Shanghai being on the west coast and Chengdu being thoroughly eastern, central, mountains, very beautiful, beautiful land around there. Back over to the northeast, a bit away from Beijing, in a couple of towns, Jinan and Dezhou. A little more Midwest kind of weather at the moment. We actually saw some snow there. So a little gray compared to the other places we were. Though I guess usually Chengdu, is apparently very gray for most of the year. But everywhere I was, we got a good amount of sun. So it was nice at least to see all these really fascinating places, which we can talk all about. But you're high level. So I picked up this hat, my panda hat at the in the panda breeding base there. I forget, it had some very technical title sounding. It was like, it felt like something you'd hear in an 80s movie where they were trying to militarize pandas, which based upon what I saw would not be an effective venture. They are very sleepy.
Yeah.
Very sleepy.
But they're good at diplomacy.
Yes. They make great negotiators because they just really want to nap for 23 hours a day. So they're like,
what did you say?
Yeah, you got to get it done very quick with them if you want to negotiate with them for sure. And then that was all work related. I was over there looking at suppliers for contract manufacturing effectively. As we are, reacting to tariffs, we're diverting a portion of our supply chain to other places in the world. And that supply chain will then service the rest of the world demand outside of the United States. So we were over there looking at what these vendors are doing, what they're capable of, auditing their quality systems. And by and large, very impressed with all of them. The shops I got to visit. And after that, took off from Jinan back, heading back towards the States, but took a little detour in Japan and visited Osaka, which you recommended a couple of places there for me, one of which I think I actually checked out. Then I went over to a little town called Ise. It had these really beautiful Shinto shrines that I enjoyed roaming around, and the town there was a little kind of quaint mountain town. It was really pretty, really beautiful vistas, and well worth the detour if you're in the area ever, I'd say. Then over finally to Tokyo and walked around Tokyo for a day and just exhausted myself. I think I walked like 40 some odd miles across 3 days. It was great.
Nice.
But I just enjoyed seeing things on foot and kind of at my own pace and like, well, what's that? And just hearing something.
For sure. Tokyo is like perfect for that.
Yeah. So I could have covered more ground if I'd used I used the subway a bit for a few things, some specific legs, but generally I just walked around. I'm sure I could have covered a lot more ground and I made a little more efficient planning of the use of the subway, but I also just kind of wanted to explore. So,
Yeah. No, it's nice to like open yourself up to the I don't know what's going to happen next,
yeah,
or what I'm
yeah,
going to see along the way.
yeah. And I was so impressed with Japan. It was just a real. I mean, I was impressed with everything in China too. Let me not lie. They had some cool tech. Like every stoplight that you pull up to shows you like if it's green, that's got like green numbers flashing, counting down, so you can see exactly how long it's going to stay green, and then the red how long before it turns to green. So I don't know, like for all the traffic they had, it seemed to flow pretty well, and I think some of that was a little bit related to some of the tech they have. Also, I think a lot of their traffic is like mopeds. So
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
a little different too. I don't know. Different speeds on the roads though. Like
It flows like water.
yeah, it's weird for how it flows.
Everything here is choppy. Like you have to stop. Like this side goes, then that side goes.
Yeah.
Whereas like my experience in Asia is like the bigger vehicle always wins. So if you're next to a bus and the bus decides to come into your lane, don't honk, don't get angry. That bus is coming. Make room.
Yeah.
And same goes for all the mopeds. Like there's going to be like little places for them to squeak by. They're going to squeak by, and it all just sort of flows in these little, different size molecules going through the lanes.
I couldn't believe that. Like I did not see an accident for all as chaotic as the traffic flow looked. Which I mean, it was a totally different principle of driving. Yes, like flowing like water is a perfect way to put it, because there's all these, like you'd have 4 or 5 lanes that would split off 3 and then re-merge and then cross because there were all these like kind of express and local and depending upon which was flowing, the driver would go one way or the other. It was insane how well the traffic did just merge without any incident. I don't know. And just so many electric cars. At least in the big cities, at least half. They have a really interesting policy of they basically have 2 different color license plates: green license plate for an EV, blue license plate for an internal combustion engine car. The license plate cost for the green is free. They'll give it to you for free. For an internal combustion engine car, it's the equivalent of $15,000, which is effectively the cost of a car. Yeah. So basically, if you want it, you have to want it. Also, those blue license plates, based upon how the weather is that day and the pollution is that day, they restrict like what days you can enter into certain zones of the city based upon like the first number of your license plate. If it's odd or even, if it's on an even day, you can go. If it's on an odd day, you can't. So what end up happening is that a lot of people that we were driving around mostly in an ICE car that was from a company that was supplying transpo. I assume they wanted to be able to quickly refill it, but we had to change cars one day because
couldn't get into the city center or whatever.
Yeah, so they had to have like double the fleet size to service that. I mean, it was just a workaround. So they're still getting in. Like it's the same. It's not necessarily having. I mean, I'm sure it is having an impact, right? But it's, but then that impact
depends on your electricity mix too. What is it? 80% coal over there.
Yeah, well, they have like 13 new reactors about to come online, though. I think that
no
mix
doubt they
is
are
about
actually
to change drastically. I think
we are not making progress, but they are making progress. Yeah,
I think, and I will have to say, in every facility I visited, they had really impressive environmental controls in place in terms of the kind of dust and particulates that processes can produce. They had strict
catch them.
Yeah, they had strict rules about catching them. So a couple of chrome shops we visited were basically wired straight to the government with fugitive emission monitors.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, it does seem like they're, for everything that you hear about in our media and what we think and say, probably anecdotally, it seems like they're making a lot of progress on the environmental front, at least.
Yeah, I guess I didn't have any doubts that they were making tons of progress. I think it's naive to think that
they want a clean environment too. They want to live in a place that's nice.
They do, but they also have to achieve things, and we achieved those decades ago, and then had to fight this, environmental battle, and now we're fighting like the remnants of that environmental battle because we can't get anything done. It's like this tug of war, But they've made progress. I mean, they have the benefit of someone else having trailblazed. And they can compress the amount of time it takes to go from completely dirty. I mean, we all grew up with pictures of the air in Beijing, like nasty stuff, right? And there's still days that are not great, but yeah,
I mean,
amazing progress nonetheless.
Shanghai, a city of 30 million people, clear blue skies. I was there for I think 3 days that I saw it, and it was, I would say, no smog issues.
And Shanghai's surrounded by industrial stuff.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly. There's industrial base around it. There's the Pudong. Wait, no, I'm sorry, not Pudong. The Qingpu bonded zone, basically a tax-free district where a lot of companies set up manufacturing facilities. I saw Pratt and Whitney was there. I saw, who else did I see? My company SLB was there. There were a couple others. SKF might have been there. I think there's like a Whirlpool, I think, or a GE shop. What, like a Whirlpool or a GE? Some appliance manufacturer. Like, so, there's a lot of companies set up in this zone because they could basically anything they make there that then ships out it's treated
Duty-free.
Differently on tax base than if it's coming into the country. So
interesting.
Yeah. So they've set up economic zones in a way that I think is
it's creative.
Yeah, creative.
You get to conduct experiments rather than, like, you get to end up seeing what works rather than making one law that like affects the entire country all at once. It's like, we're going to do this over here real quick, and if it works, we're going to spread that idea. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't need to spread, and we don't have to go through this like pulling teeth thing because everyone spent a bunch of money going in one direction, and now they're angry that they've traveled in this direction, and having spent money and time and resources for you to tell me like, oh, oops.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, oops.
Well, there's a lot of oops going on our side. So I want you to talk more about like what actually was going on and how does that extrapolate out to the broader U.S. economy? Because it seems to me like we are shipping particularly...
Yeah,
we're shipping things over. We're doing the exact opposite of what we're told we're doing.
Exactly. So what I would say is, and I'm a little able to talk more openly about this finally. Sorry we haven't been around for a while, y'all. We've had some months where I had to shut up. Effectively, what's happening is we are resourcing a lot of products that used to be manufactured in America, where we might have had a slight... we might have been at a slight cost disadvantage, but not a significant enough cost disadvantage to actually relocate the supply for the trade-off you would get in lead time in some cases, or just the cost of setting up a new vendor. It's non-zero cost. You have to order products that may or may not be good the first time around. There's a lot of hand holding and engineering time you spend when setting up new vendors and for manufacturing complex assemblies. So if you don't have a large enough cost delta, then the return on that investment is long enough where it's we'll put it off till it's a quicker payoff. And
the switching cost is too high for someone to make a decision to like really go.
Exactly. So we might have been actually at a slight cost negative position, but because the switching costs are high, it didn't make sense. And so all of a sudden, April hits, that math changes entirely. And
Liberation Day for those not keeping track.
Liberation of I don't know how many hundreds to thousands of American jobs. I mean,
at least 40,000 manufacturing jobs lost so far.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's been, I believe, the worst year for layoffs since 2008, which was a pretty bad year from what I remember too. Yeah. So yeah, it's basically we're seeing in real time that we are literally closing facilities in the United States to compress our footprint, because the only thing we're going to manufacture in the United States is products that will be used in the United States, maybe Mexico and Canada. So I was over in China to perform some quality audits and review processes of these suppliers to see if they were up to snuff. And by and large, they were. And they had really, overall, their working conditions weren't quite as nice as ours. It's particularly with only really one thing: climate control. The places we were, it was kind of chilly, and inside they didn't have really great heating systems, so it was colder than I would have expected. But it wasn't. At least the day I was there, it wasn't. I wouldn't say cruel or inhumane or anything. It was just a little chilly. And people, had an extra coat on and they were fine for that. Now, if other days, I don't know. They were not necessarily the most efficient shops in the world. They seem to have a few more staff in places than I would be able to necessarily
They've got a
staff.
surplus of that, so that
Yes.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. They have. I think not quite leaned out their processes. If they, pick up the Toyota production system over there, watch out. And I'm sure in
In the next 20 years, I think it's going to.
and I'm sure in some industries they have too. Like the industries, what I'm over there looking at is a lot of very high mix, low volume processes and parts that are being ordered. So it doesn't necessarily lend itself super well to some of the leaning out you could do with a Toyota system where you have high volume, consistent one part after the other, like just all day, every day. If you're going to look at a Chinese automotive manufacturer, I'm sure you would see it very leaned out I'm sure they went and learned from the best. Why wouldn't they? But it doesn't necessarily make sense in every industry. Yeah. And so that's why I was there and functionally what I was doing, Dan. And overall, I was impressed with what I saw. I thought that they have a strong base of manufacturing engineers that know how to solve problems, that know how to do all the things they need to do. They're going to continue to improve upon. I saw a lot of technology that they had, maybe at one point been licensed to produce that they'd then gone and iterated on and improved, and they were making things better. The EV fleets over there, because of what they have a wide selection available of very, I think, more exciting designs than what we see here in the States. It's interesting how it's all built up.
Yeah, seemingly overnight. I know it wasn't overnight, but it really feels that way, especially out here where we have no access to seeing this change happen more gradually, right? Like if you were in the Philippines or China or, pick your other, maybe India, you would have seen the slow rise of BYD and some other Chinese EV manufacturers, because you would have seen the cars like slowly come from, a little bit out of nowhere, but then getting more and more familiar and then more and more abundant. And here we're not experiencing that change at all. So then you go over there and you send me pictures of some of these cars and it's like, nice.
It was fun. One of my hotels was attached to a shopping mall, like a 9-story mall, and I walked 4 of them, and each floor had at least one, if not 2, auto dealerships on it, which was interesting. Like Huawei's cars, I really kind of enjoyed the look of them. The BYD cars, I liked the look of. I thought it looked like designs that I'm like, I could see that being popular in the States as far as the look and appeal. It's just, Tesla is what it is.
The price tag will be what the American consumer wants.
Yeah,
it's basically half off for a better car.
Exactly.
Like if you're Ford, boy.
I mean, and Huawei, as far as being set up with a whole ecosystem, it's like they did what Apple wanted to do. They have a car, they have TVs that automatically connect with watches and their laptops and their phones, and it's
wow. It's like a whole ecosystem.
It's a whole ecosystem, yeah. From like I met this one guy who has literally everything he had: the car, the watch, the phone, the computer, all Huawei. And everything just connected seamlessly, and for a quarter of the cost of a MacBook. I looked up, I was comparing. It's like, these are pretty similar specs for about a quarter of the cost. What?
Yeah.
Which is, why we tariff the shit out of those products, right? I guess. Which I think, if you
hasn't Tim got the workaround on that the whole time? Oh, you mean tariffing the Chinese?
The Chinese brands, right? I don't think you could even get them in country or working, probably.
You'd have to smuggle. I don't know. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of cybersecurity risk there.
Yeah, that's also true. There's a huge cybersecurity risk. I did not.
That's legit. People are going to be like, "Oh, they just use that excuse as a way to not," and it's like, yes and no. Like it's going to be both, because not everything's going to be bugged, but once that bug gets in, look out, everything's gone.
Yeah. So there was one city I visited in China where my VPN stopped working. It was the last day of my trip, and that was a very, all of a sudden, shocking feeling to not be able to touch anything Google related.
That is so weird. Yeah.
It's just like what? Like yeah, for some reason in one city, like the VPN I had wouldn't connect for some reason. So I don't know.
Firewall found you.
Yeah, something like it, or maybe because I was in like touristy enough cities where they're like, oh, we'll allow certain things in certain zones. Is what I was
Maybe.
thinking. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know, but you definitely the impression that there's no cash, so every transaction is tracked.
Yeah, there's no hiding any of your behavior, basically.
Yeah, there's no hiding any of your behavior, any of your spending behavior. It's basically everything goes through Alipay, which is a really cool. Like I thought was a fun thing to use. It made getting around super convenient and handy. There was like one app that gets you on the subway that also you could rent a bicycle with, that you can use to buy a soda
A little
with.
different than Osaka.
Yeah, exactly. I was so integrated and smooth, and like to get onto the train and to the subway, it was the same app for everything, which was really cool. I liked that a lot. But then also, it's like you can, you load it in your face, and then you can just go and look at the machine and press what you want, and it'll bend, and just kind of cool.
No, it's incredible. It's really, really awesome. Until you either examine the dark side or the dark side becomes much more visible to you, right? Like having walked through the museum of the Stasi in Berlin, I'm cognizant of how this works and where it goes if the power structure changes. That's it.
And I would like, if cash was an option, I'd think I'd be okay with it too, right? It's like, oh, I could still use, but you're still getting a photo everywhere. Like, honestly, at this point, think about just the density of cameras.
Yes.
Compared to what it was. Yeah.
There's no like explicit surveillance state here.
No, but like all the networked ring cameras, all the 100%. Security cameras. I mean,
it's dispersed. That's the difference. The power is dispersed for now.
Yeah. Yes.
There, it's all centralized. So all it takes is one person to make a decision, and you're disappeared.
Yeah. And I guess it is a problem for twins, apparently.
Oh, that's
it
funny.
Actually does. Yeah, like
so if you actually have an evil twin, a real one,
yeah, you could totally
you could get arrested.
That, I was like, oh, somebody needs to write this Chinese thriller about like,
I like,
or like it's an American twin that goes to China and gets his life set up, and then it like dies, and the brother comes over to like just like has all access to, like his brother was like a superhero or something. I don't know.
What if like the CIA costume department, we have some sort of enemy that you want the government to come, the Chinese government to come crashing down upon this Chinese national. So you go over there dressed as the Chinese national, like in full disguise, and you do pull off some sort of crime that is going to be recorded, and then disappear, and then your target takes the fall.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, there's problems with the surveillance state, right? And
we've seen it many times before. Yes,
the surveillance state with AI is going to be just a joy, joy.
Something.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of problems.
We're never going to be able to believe anything ever again. That's okay though.
Kind of already. That's already happening, I feel like, especially on a generational level. I've received a few text messages. They're like, can you believe this? And I'm like, I can, because that was made by a machine via words that a human typed in there. And that human wanted you to see this, like this has no basis in reality whatsoever. Not yet, at least. But yeah, that style of misinformation is already out in the wild.
It is. It very much is. It'll just continue to be. So, there's nothing we can do. Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of this. The genie's out of the bottle and it doesn't go back in, right?
Yeah.
The best you can do is inoculate yourself to being able to at least triangulate upon accuracy.
Yeah.
And how much faith do we have in the larger population of being able to do that?
And I don't think the answer is also like trying to kill the technology or necessarily limiting it either. Like it is such like there's some parts of it that are just
anti-answer.
Exactly. It's so like that's people want to like, oh, we should slow down AI so we have a chance to regulate it. Bernie, no. We need to.
Bad idea.
Yeah, we need to try to grow through the problems and work through the problems and just hope we don't incinerate ourselves along the way. But that's the only way. The only way out is through on this.
Yes,
frankly,
100%.
And full steam ahead. We should go. but so useful. Like some of the technology is so useful. I was in this 2 countries, didn't know the language. I could just take my phone, hold it up, and look at what that screen said and read what that sign said. I didn't have to take it. It would just translate it for me. I could figure out where I was going. I could read any menu. Near instantaneously. I could ask it for suggestions on places to go based upon things I felt like at the moment, and it would route me with 4 or 5 ideas, and then I could go.
That's cool.
It was a handy little travel companion. Like they're just for opening up the world. It's such a fascinating technology that we need to let it develop into other things. But I guess those other things are pretty scary, drone warfare and whatnot.
Yeah, diversion. Did you see the video of the fiber optic cable, like spider web in Ukraine?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those videos. It looks like a
totally dystopian. Like this is no one wrote a book about this beforehand. I mean, maybe some conceptually, but like seeing the image, I'm like,
yeah, and
okay, this is an interesting future.
Fiber optic cable known for not particularly being degradable, right? So
it's glass.
Yeah, it's gonna be there for decades, or short of a massive cleanup effort that would take, how many hundreds of millions, billions of dollars at this point. It's just gonna get worse as the war goes on.
Yeah, because having that stuff up there is better than your house burning down or being exploded, right?
Yeah. Right? Future warfare, I guess.
It is. Have you also, while we're here, seen like the tanks and other vehicles, like how they've constructed defenses around the vehicle specifically? Like,
no, I haven't.
So instead of, if you've just got a tank, expand that out like another 10 feet on either side and 10 feet up, and then there'll be like netting around it and stuff like that. Because, the drone, if it's packaged with an explosive, like you don't want it near the surface of the tank. The tank is still a tank. Like it can take a beating, but the drone doesn't get through the netting. But then the people driving the tank can see through the netting, fire through the netting, but the drone can't quite get close enough, right? You'd get a loud bang, something, pretty uncomfortable, I'm sure, to feel that. And some
what if we got some of those big inflatable eyeballs and put them like on the corners so that the drones thought it was just a big owl and got scared away, maybe.
Decoys.
Yeah, I like it though. No, I like it. It's going to slow down the tank, I think, having to navigate and find space where you have all the overhead clearance for the netting. You're going to have to maybe watch where you maneuver through and change your, that's an interesting, what's that going to do to the other aspects of
all of the second order effects? Like we're seeing some of the, the drone warfare was the first order, and now we're seeing some of the second order, but there's like third, fourth, fifth, it's like this cascades out into so many other things. And then the question of like human behavior and human weaponry and like what else is going to be invented that hasn't yet been invented, right?
Did you read, what was it in this week? I forget if it was in the Times or where. Basically an assessment of, there were some war games done recently between looking at assessing, China, U.S. capabilities effectively. And they ran through 4 or 5 different scenarios, and every single one of them, basically China has a stranglehold on the Strait of, between them and Taiwan. There's nothing we could do if they wanted to take invasive action. There's basically nothing we could do because of the way China's built their strategy around things that seemed maybe unconventional at the time, heavily investing in mines and diesel subs.
Diesel subs. Yeah, because I mean, if you're not trying to be the world's navy, keeping free trade open, your only concern is, can I invade that island right over there? Which
diesel subs are fine. You can get a lot more of them for the
price, for sure. Yeah. And the amount of training needed and for the people to operate them and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Taiwan's in a pickle, man. Like it's tough. Yeah. But like 100%, it goes back to like who's in charge in China, right? Like, do they care about the value of Taiwan, like the economic value, or is it just this like cultural, it's ours take? And right now it feels like the leadership is a little bit more like it's ours, and they don't, so do they care that they, wipe the world's ability to make chips if they invade? Like set the world back 25 years? Because that's kind of
They might not. Like
That's what I'm worried about.
because
Yeah.
if everybody's leveled off, then everybody's leveled off, right? Does it matter to them at that point? Like
I think from their
they might be
standpoint,
confident
they'd
enough
be
in
like,
their internal abilities to say this is only going to set us back 5
it
years.
might help us
like,
leapfrog.
right?
Yep. As soon as they
So-
can reverse engineer the ASML machines, done.
They should just include a small nuclear warhead in each of those machines. It's remote detonate.
You need to have like a second life within the United States government as like an idea generator. Like,
Safety is. By the way, we've also included for the first time ever on our most advanced lithography machines a feature we're calling "Safety as a Service." For the low price of $1 billion a year, we will not detonate this bomb.
yes. Contract, kind of not negotiable.
Yeah. With it, you get free lifetime parts and warranty, though.
Yeah, we'll fly to you to fix things. Yeah, no
Exactly.
problem.
Yeah, exactly. We'll come. You don't have to take a look under the hood. We're gonna.
We'll buy the
fully
hotel
service this.
ourselves.
Exactly. I could see that happening. I don't know.
I could see something like that. Yeah, some sort of self detonation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. If you for the as complex as the machines are, you'd think that they would have some like extra tight controls on things that I'm sure we can't even fathom.
I mean, I just was listening to Bill Bishop. Was it this past week or the week prior? And there was word that like the Chinese had made a lot of progress on reverse engineering the ASML machines because they got one anyway. They're not even supposed to have them, right? So yeah, but they got them.
Didn't they get like an old model one or something?
Something like that. But still, if you haven't caught on by now, if there's one skill that has been shown repeatedly to be of utmost import and their ability to succeed upon, it would be reverse engineering other people's work.
Yeah, very much. Exactly. So it's in some way only a matter of time, you'd think.
Yeah. Well, going back to genies and bottles, right? Like,
Yeah.
if we put it out in the world, if it's openly available, it's only a matter of time. Like it's as with anything in life, things cut both ways. Everything has a good and bad side, and globalization, lots of things that people are complaining about, but one would be that technology gets spread more quickly, good and bad. Yeah.
I think it's not so much the technology spreads, but how it gets used at this point. I mean, like there's the tech in China that the average person has access to is the same as here effectively. It's how is it being used and implemented. I guess outside when you're talking about warfare, right? That's the one area where maybe tech really, that edge does truly matter. But I don't know. Does it matter if China has access to some of the same AI that we do? I don't know.
I mean, it's got to functionally matter, but I think we used to be able to count on the diff being years, and now I feel like the diff is months.
Oh yeah, no, it's almost none. Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's not almost none. It's more than that. Like we were just talking about the EUVs, right? There's years long gaps there, and so certain technologies it's a bigger delta than we're perhaps.
Yeah, because like we're
giving
assessing
credit,
this problem
but-
from this standpoint of like these EUV machines have been around for how long, right? And they've been,
Yeah.
Someone's been attempting this for a very long time now. So like this isn't just turn it around in a couple of weeks.
What happens if China has the best EUV machines? What does that mean?
Best
Or just that they're at parity?
if they're it means that they are chip independent. I think this notion that we need to like not let Nvidia sell chips to China is like a bad thing. It feels like it's some sort of power lever for us, but ultimately like it would be better. I think in the long term it would be better if they were dependent on our chip and chip designs and software that helps run the chips. Right. By withholding the best technology in the service of like slowing down their AI, we are actually making it make economic sense for them to try to reverse engineer absolutely everything and get independent, make their own stuff. At which point, if there is some sort of skirmish of any kind, whether it's like completely hot or just a bit hotter than cold, then this breaking apart, like, who has the upper hand is much more of a question. Because they've got the manufacturing base, and then you put on top of that like all of the intelligence and chips and all the things that like matter in running
warfare.
a campaign of any kind.
Yeah, so it always comes back to warfare where it matters. I'm just thinking like in terms of like daily life and like does it like in terms of our like our typical daily life and the daily life of somebody in China, like does it matter? But it does in terms of national security, right? That's where it does.
And that's when it starts potentially mattering for the regular citizen who would rather just put on the earmuffs and not think about anything going on in the world.
Yeah.
Because the world might come to them.
I mean, we're also assuming they'd have a way to source the silicon needed. I mean, we know that the for the purity of silicon they need, there's only that one mine that's known of. I mean, not saying they haven't found another pure source, but at the moment we only know of one mine in the world, and that's in North Carolina, right? So
I guess so.
at least we got that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know how to begin thinking about that. Like, it seems to me like, of course, there's another place. We just haven't found it.
There has to be, right? You wouldn't let him publish that book if there wasn't, as the government, right? You'd be
Free speech, Sean. Free speech.
Ed, we're very. Come to dinner tonight with us, Ed. We want to. We can't believe you've pieced this together. Just join us for a dinner over here at. We're the Boeing guy. Yeah,
we will lockbox all the microphones. Don't worry. Faraday cages.
So I mean, there are other sensitivities, I guess, within that system that might. I mean, can they make the lenses too? Right? There's a lot of things that are single sourced within the supply chain of our most advanced products. Which, man, like the other thing that sucks about it, like if your battery dies and you have to have a phone app for everything,
you're stuck.
You're stuck for a while, right? Yeah.
Or if I do like phone like worse than that. Like that is like I just got to go ask someone for some juice. You bust your phone on the sidewalk. Can you get home? Can you pay for an Uber or whatever? Didi. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think taxis took cash. I did see that.
But where do you get cash?
I don't know. I didn't get any cash while I was there. I didn't need it. I needed some in Japan. I didn't need any in China. Japan had a lot of little cash only. There's some spots that were cash only, and that was just go to 7-Eleven. If you're ever in Japan and need cash, just go to 7-Eleven. Hit the ATM.
You should definitely go to 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven is an experience there. Also visit Watson.
It is.
They're awesome.
Yes, I had
real food.
I had a delicious egg salad sandwich or 3 from 7-Eleven. They were great. Really enjoyed those little things. Yeah, nice little experience in Japan and all the convenience stores. And all their systems are really meant to handle cash. Like they have all these automatic coin dispensers and coin changers and coin acceptors everywhere. Cash is more part of integral to their society.
Well, you can tell that the real blossoming was in the 80s and 90s, right? Like all of this got built out then.
Yeah, you can feel when it got built.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think, there's a little bit more of like cycles of reinvention in the States. We hang on to things, but we also have new things. In Japan, it's a little bit more like it's very much a singular culture. And that singular culture had things happen in particular time frames, and including a demographic collapse. So along with all the, sort of financial side of Japan too. So like that reinvestment and that reinvention, recycling of things hasn't gone all the way through,
I would that feels spot on. It felt very much certain things were of a time. Everything felt like 1987 in some regards,
including
and like
the vinyl bars.
Yeah, exactly. The little 4-seat bar where it's just this guy in 4 seats and 3,000 vinyl jazz records that you can just sit down and have a beer, and it's beautiful and it's great, and that couldn't exist in most places in the States. Maybe in New York. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure.
Nah, rent's too high.
Yeah.
Unless someone that's coming in and dropping like $150 tip on top of their drink, like you can't just come and sit in the 4-seat thing for a few hours and listen to jazz records. Like that bar's not surviving in New York for sure.
No. And I guess, do people just not want to immigrate to like a nation like Japan, or do they not allow immigration? Like, is
it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I hear anecdotal, but being there, living there, and not being Japanese, I hear is quite difficult. Not no one. You don't get in, and you're always the outsider. There is no such thing as like integration and assimilation.
I could see that if like they were nice enough to tourists, but they I don't know. I mean, yeah, I could see that being
To each their own.
similar.
It's their culture, it's their country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's never been. I shouldn't say like it's not. It's not a place of ingestion. Whereas I feel like that's what we capitalize on. Like we're some of the problems that you see in Europe right now, I think, is because like assimilation isn't quite the same speed as it is over here. Yeah. And as long as like other people who've come to your country still feel like outsiders, then they will not be, wrapped up into your culture and your way of thinking, and then you have like more fractures.
Yeah, definitely
Whereas
there
ours
was
evolves,
unity. There was definitely unity in the culture. I mean, in both China and Japan, every street was just so freaking clean. Like I walked so many miles on foot, and I saw a half dozen pieces of litter the whole time. It was insanely nice it was just insanely refreshing to be somewhere where people cared, and that's part of that the unity of the culture, right? Of that.
There's less blaming of others, whatever those others are, right?
Yeah.
You see you see the trash here or something, and it's like, well, those people, or I don't know. That's a very incomplete idea, but I think there's like a bit of toxicity.
I've been trying to put my finger on what it is that drives it's there's not personal ownership, or it's you. I don't know. I don't know where that sense of pride comes from. Don't see it around here though, and in the same way.
Well, all it takes, going back, like a recurring theme is like you will be ruled by the bottom quintile, right? And it really like we could have 75-80% of our population be like totally on the ball and not litter and clean up after themselves and all that kind of stuff. But if the bottom quintile isn't, you'll see it.
You'll see it right away, and that then bleeds over into the other quintiles too. I think then how much well, not it's not all, but like, is there any contribution of expecting other people to help you do certain things in a way? Like it's like, oh well, the government should help me come clear this trash away because they're the government. It's like, well, no, it's not heavy trash day. It's not like, or it's not. You don't just rely on the street sweeper to come by and pick up after you.
I was gonna say, you don't throw your Kit Kat wrapper out the window because because of the street sweeper, or like adopt a road.
Yeah.
I do think some people think that way, though. Someone else will take care of it. Not my problem.
Yeah. So nobody takes care of anything. Not
well,
nobody,
the tragedy. No, not yeah, exactly. You're exaggerating, but like the tragedy of the comment starts to become more and more true, right? Well, and it cascades. Like if that person's not going to take care of it, then why am I going to go 110% on this, right? I'll go 75% instead, and then the person who was going to go 85% sees your 75% and goes to 55. I don't know. It just cascades.
Yeah, it does. It sets a mindset. It sets a mood. It sets I don't know. Sorry, it took me down in a way I didn't mean to. Anyway,
well, it was something that bothered you, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's been on my mind since I got back, and just seeing the difference in the give a shitness.
The give a shit, yeah.
That's
a technical term.
Yeah.
Trademark.
Like, how do we inspire more of that? And I guess sort of just, going out and cleaning up other people's messes. There's not much you can do. And maybe that's what we need is just start a giant litter pickup campaign across the states.
Sometimes I wonder, like, you can't even be that direct. I think there's like, it's a bigger sort of like national pride thing, which, we're watching that be a little bit more toxic than it ought to be. But if you channel it in the positive direction, it's like the Chinese are proud. They're building. Yeah. They're doing stuff. And like part of that is also taking care of the sidewalk and the plants and so on and so forth, right? Here, I would say from an attitude perspective, it can feel like a country in decline. And that, to me, is what's got to stop. Because as long as that is in the mind, it will be so, right?
I think you're spot on. It's self-perpetuating if it exists and lives as an idea. It's got to be something you got to root out, and I mean, you can have the idea can exist, but you have to acknowledge it and then say, nope, that's not gonna let that control it.
And this is why. And this is what we're gonna. It goes to be a multitude of different campaigns, but you would have to turn that whole flywheel around.
Yeah, that's a good point on how you would even go about starting that. And I wonder like how much success like a campaign like that could actually achieve. Like, could you get 20% of the population, which might be enough? Like, you only need 1 in 5, 1 in 4, really.
Yeah, like my another question I have though is like, is this even the right
Yeah.
area with which to push? Right. I think ultimately it's more like, can we get people to feel like they're more emotionally and economically involved in the success of the country? Because right now, I would say like the attitude is that the country doesn't have my best interests at heart. That's what a lot of people feel, and how that manifests on both sides of the aisle and all the rest of it means like the percentage of people that have that attitude is too high, and with it being too high, it will become true. And if it becomes true, it self perpetuates, and that's anyway. Like, is it that we just need some sort of campaigns to get people out and doing things? Or is it that we need to make them feel more invested in the success and the direction of the country, such that, they feel like their vote matters, they feel like their dollars matter?
Doesn't one beget two in some way? Like, these campaigns that would drive.
I don't know. If you're still
that
renting a
feeling?
house and you can't afford one, and you feel like you can't afford to have a kid, and therefore your life is meaningless, like, does it matter that you got to go pick up trash?
No, you're right. Well, even going in home, you're still renting. I mean, you're not. You like the asset class changes, but it's not like you're building equity. You're building equity, and
Think
you
about
have
it
something that you can
psychologically rather
trade.
than
Yeah, it's something you
functionally.
still have something you can trade, and like you feel like you're achieving something with it. I think no, you're right though. Like, people don't have a sense of ownership or a stake. They feel they have a stake in the system. They're never going to want to build the community, make it better, spiffy it up.
Yeah.
So you got to start building more supply, allowing more supply, alternative types of supply. Is it more density? Like, one thing I noticed over in China is everything is so dense, right?
Yeah, you're not going
But
to get
there's also a
Americans
lot
to
of
do that, though.
renters. Yeah, exactly. You're not going to get Americans to live dense.
I don't think it's about copying a specific model. I think you've got to decide what model is correct for down to the community level here, and try to let it blossom. But this, speaking of mind viruses, like you can't, like, this anti-progress, anti-doing things. That's what's got to stop, because that in and of itself is our main blockage for making things more expensive.
Yeah,
As long as we can't do things, the things we have will get more expensive.
I agree. Like, one
And
thing that
keeps people out of the dream, if you will. And it even doesn't even have to be this, like, the American dream. It's like the American dream's gotten too big. You and I have talked about that before. Like, we need to sort of re-examine what the American dream is and sell that new vision.
well,
There we go. Sell that vision. Get it implanted in like Gen Z and down.
there you go.
Right?
And one thing that would help also, like that you just mentioned, like we need to stop getting in the way of certain projects that could also help economically, like make a lot more outcomes more viable. For example, the high-speed rail from Houston to Dallas. Like, if you had that and you had a couple of stops halfway in the middle where land's super cheap, all of a sudden it becomes economically viable to commute to Houston from a place that's a lot low. You can open up more geography with big projects that we just don't do here. We just get in the way of, or we protect we protect the smallest at the cost of everybody.
Yes.
There's something admirable to that, but there's also something that we're kind of stupid. Like, it's like, okay, we like, yeah, sure, we're trying to protect it, make sure nothing changes. No, we can make sure that the smallest is as best as possible cared for, but still move forward. Like, just because it impacts them doesn't mean we can't continue. Impact is now not allowed, and it's need to be compensated for impact, not just complete ceasing of it, or ceasing of progress because we're negatively impacting a small subset of people because their view got worse. I don't care about your view anymore.
I don't either. Yeah. Like, I'm over it.
Enjoy the new view of a high-speed rail. Like, watch it zip by. It's just going to be pretty cool. Let's build some cool stuff. I don't know.
It's going to be, well, it's funny. Like, it's not even about it being a small subset of a small group, right? It's an infinitesimally large set of small groups that can stop progress.
That's so true. Yeah, it could be some people worried about the impact to their view. It could be somebody worried about the impact to a critter that lives somewhere along the area. It could be I don't know,
Yeah.
a
No, the list
lobbyist
goes on.
for, a lobbyist for whatever. I don't know, for the auto industry that's like, oh, we're going to not sell as many cars here because this exists. And it's like, well, whatever. Like, we got to move forward. But
Yeah.
we are lawyers by nature here, I think. So
And I think there's a data
society of
center.
lawyers.
Yeah, a data center in the industrial Midwest that spent decades getting written about as a plight, as a sad story about Americans not caring about America anymore. And now a reindustrialization is hungry and ready to come back to the Midwest, and the Midwest seems to think that it needs to blockade it. Also, a lot of misinformation about water usage and data centers.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. I've noticed that
It's like a closed loop system. Get in there, and then yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same. You have some evaporation going on, but they're also rolling a lot of water usage from power generation up too, I think, which probably needs to be considered in some of those, like the ones that are on the higher end. I've like, oh, at least they're looking at like the power, what comes in the power generation. If certain plants can use quite a bit of water. No, but that's to me secondary. I'm more worried about the impact of the inflation due to power costs, frankly, than the water usage at this point. I think that ends up going into a lot of things that then become more expensive.
Oh, for sure. And you still got to power your house. So now you're competing
that
against
compounds.
Yeah, especially when you're not building.
Yeah. That compounds in a nasty way that I don't like. But that's which we could stop getting in our own way and build some nukes, I guess.
Build some nukes. And then like the world's leading scientist on fusion got knocked off. So
it's 1974. Like, I just feel like we are in the 70s. I feel like this is what every movie I saw growing up, like,
yes.
This is what I felt like the 70s felt like based upon those movies. And it just feels like that, like we're right in the middle of it.
I think what's interesting is like both, like, you read a dystopian sci-fi novel or something like that, and the world and the vision of that world is so cohesive, and like you get to live in it. This is the beauty of stories and books and all the rest of it. But also we're living in one. And even though it feels, your day-to-day life might be totally comfortable. You've got this, nice car and a nice house, and you go to this nice job and everything's fine. The world might be weird, but it's not so bad here for myself, right? And versus like talking about the fiber optics being strung across like an entire village in Ukraine, or entire roadways having to be under like camouflage netting so that, drones get trapped in it before it actually hits vehicles and knocks people off. Whatever. So you got this dystopian vision that like is very clear and visible in certain ways. And then I don't know, this expansive sort of like massive progress being made both, all around the world, here and in China, and all kinds of different blossoming places, and things are changing all at once. And then like where I'm going with this is I wrote about an idea where like I think we often spend time thinking about like Athens or Florence or the Roman Republic as these like grand places, almost utopian in our vision of them, our recollection of them, right? Whereas the reality is that they were still just as litigious and petty and brilliant and amazing, and all of the features of humanity packed into that utopia, because we've assigned it some sort of clearer vision, rose tinted lenses to look at in history, versus like realizing we are in the Roman Republic now. Like it is a utopia if we choose it to be, if we make it to be, right? We have the power to be what we want to be. All we have to do is act the right ways and manifest it ourselves.
That's a lovely idea. It's a lovely idea. And so important to remember that. I mean, as utopian as those things in the past also would have seemed, if you were there right now, you'd be like, this sucks. It smells like shit.
Yeah. And they just killed Socrates.
Yes, because they didn't like his ideas or something. I don't get, like, what? Yeah, so we are still, progress has been made, and it continues to be made, and it does get, but it feels like some days it feels like some of the progress is starting to come undone, and that's where my anxiety kicks in. But by and all, though,
at what weight do you put the negatives, right?
Yeah. And also, sometimes you need a little conflagration. You need a little, sometimes, creative destruction, and certain institutions
absolutely.
and things need to change because they get too set in certain ways that aren't proper or productive anymore, and need
Well, the needs
need a
change,
shake-up.
right? Like, going
Yeah.
back to the 60s and 70s, we were talking about like environmentalism, like did amazing progress. Like that was necessary and needed. And it's not that it's not necessary or unneeded now, but the balance with which the priorities are being weighed do seem off, and that's what needs readjusted, right? It's
Yeah.
what scares me now is it feels like people are much more willing to take like an entire side of things and go like, well, we don't need that anymore. It's like, oh, okay, the pendulum just swung. If we take your idea, the pendulum will swing too hard and fast, and then you will necessitate it swinging the other way hard and fast. It's like, let's slow down the pendulum and try to reorient it inside of its or span.
Yeah, get the period right, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we have to have that back and forth. Like otherwise,
Yeah.
that's the way it is forward. Is back and forth. It's not just one way, because if
Otherwise
we're
it's
just
all
always
stagnant.
going one way, yeah, we end up just going one way to death. The path has to keep changing. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a bad spot, I feel.
Well, and then going back to the beginning of the episode, like special economic zones or something like that. That's a way to test before you swing, before
Yeah.
you put like a whole bunch of energy into the pendulum. Like, let's just do it right here.
I mean, seriously, like if we could, like if we were in a special economic zone where I could import my raw material without tariffs and then re-export my finished product, like you're getting all the these are good jobs. They're not bad jobs. That
Yep.
they're good jobs that we should be supporting here, that are being impacted by these policies. And we're
How expensive is it to restore those?
they're not ever going to be.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, I hate to put this idea into the world, but in 3-4 years, you take the tariffs away. You've now said, hey, wait, we've really reestablished this other base of manufacturing. Maybe we should use it more fully for United States stuff. And then do you cause a second wave of exodus because you've already gone through the process of qualifying,
Forcing a whole
building
bunch of people
supply base.
forcing a whole bunch of people who were not prepared to be in China be in China. And now it's like, oh, well, now you've,
Now you broke the last dam. So now if the
I
tariffs
still
go away,
struggle to see any positive from these tariffs, like any, because it's a lot of
Really?
money collected is just from Americans anyways.
Yeah, I don't know.
Circular.
Lilly is maybe the only thing that is coming to mind because I know they've announced a couple plants that they're building here, but that might have been already in the work. I suspect that was already, because it takes 10 years to do a site survey and get environmental approval. That was probably already well in the works, I would think. So
You're probably right about that.
like, and also because of that, we might not. Let's say there hypothetically is some thing that's about to be reshored because of this, and we just haven't heard about it yet. That might not have happened yet, in theory. But I don't see what it would be, though. I just don't see what it would be.
Yeah.
Like, I got nothing. I don't know.
For people not watching the video, this is a look of confusion on Sean's face.
I don't know what I don't know what it's going to bring back. I don't know. We'll quote unquote bring back. Maybe not even steel production necessarily. I don't know. Steel production would maybe be the one thing where it's like, okay, we'll refire up a mill somewhere, but that hasn't happened really. And if anything, I feel like I read about some consolidation. Well, I mean, U.S. Steel is bought out by Nippon, right? And then that deal closed with the government getting a weird golden chip in it, and the assurances of
a golden share,
some expansion of some
because
production.
capitalism.
So, because capitalism. Anyway,
There's so many things.
some things.
Have you written a new piece for Black Tuesdays?
I have. I'm hoping to finish it today. I'm working through a metaphor. I'm trying to come around to at the end.
Okay.
And
that's the difficulty.
That's a little bit of it. I'm trying to figure out how to write it. And I went back through and reread it, and I also wanted to clean up my headspace a little bit from where I was when I was writing it. So
okay,
because
you were a little charged there for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm still pretty ticked off on certain things because I'm just so mad at seeing like
jobs go away.
these good quality livelihoods have to disappear, and it doesn't feel
The
like,
exact
and it
things
feels
that
like,
should not be leaving. Yeah.
yeah, and it doesn't feel like we've ever set ourselves up for ever protecting ourselves in that front. And it goes back to most recently, I think Apple going across and setting up China effectively. I think they set up their electronics manufacturer in a meaningful way based upon what we read in the book Apple in
Apple
China.
in China.
And so, like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, to me, it's the story of Icarus and Daedalus and the Minotaur. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with that particular tale.
Not hugely.
You know how so Minos, this king, one of three brothers who had possible right lay to the claim of the king of Crete, wanted to effectively come in and take power after the death of his father. And there was a potential war with his two brothers, and to make sure that the power was supposed to be transferred peacefully, Minos prayed to Poseidon, and Poseidon said, "I will help you win this war, without bloodshed to your troops, with safe passage on the seas. But here's this white bull that you have to take and sacrifice in my name, so that people know who helped give you these great things." But then Minos just loved the bull. Like, it was just the most beautiful bull. He just loved it, and he couldn't bring himself to kill the bull. So as retribution, Poseidon then set Minos' wife Pasiphae madly in love with this bull, and she was just then lusting after the bull. And the bull was going on this raging rampage through the countryside, destroying crops and fields and whatnot. And Pasiphae eventually went to Daedalus, basically Minos' best mind, his best architect and engineer, and says, help me figure out how to capture this bull, and ultimately the love child of Pasiphae and the bull, because Daedalus basically builds her like a Trojan cow costume, for lack of a better word, so that the bull will come along and consummate the act. She ends up giving birth to the Minotaur, who then becomes this raging beast of war that Daedalus then helps construct a labyrinth for to help contain, so Minos can use the power of the Minotaur against his enemies. And then, so that nobody will know how to escape the labyrinth, he locks the only person that knows, Daedalus, up inside the labyrinth with his son Icarus. Anyway, there's a whole metaphor I'm building about in this. Like, I think Minos is Steve Jobs.
Okay.
And I think he was lusting over power and this beautiful thing that he saw and he had this vision for. And they came up with a way to get to start to actually make these products. And unfortunately, the white bull, I think, is the profits. And we've basically not wanting to sacrifice profits. Daedalus, the Apple engineers, basically helped Tim Cook, give birth to this Minotaur of China. And then at the end, where we, the American people, are stuck here with the Apple engineers looking for a way out. And we are Icarus. We have flown too close to the sun, and all at the expense of what effectively this company's done to the way jobs have now become so easily ported outside. Like, they set up this infrastructure, this network where you can go there, and it's so easy to get in and out of the country as an American business person trying to bring production to them. Like, it's streamlined for us to do it.
I like it.
Mad at Apple for that.
Yeah. To be playful with this idea a little bit, is there something that we are refusing to learn from the Chinese? Not that I'm encouraging us to try to beat them at their own game, but is this one of those genies out of the bottle where it's like we're still in the denial phase of, we can't accept that this is now real, but if we were to solve the problem or heal sooner, the process with which to do that would be to go through.
How do we? That's a good question, Dan.
I don't know what that looks like. Like, I haven't come up with that yet.
Like, I think what we have to learn back from See,
You can't undo it, right?
you can't undo it. And we're going to see what happens as things start to move a little bit to India, but they don't have, I think, the migrant population required to support all this in full, right? So I think China is going to remain China for the foreseeable future because of their overall, the benefits they have from an overall population. And honestly, maybe what ends up leveling the playing field again is as their middle class continues to grow and build, and their cost of living goes up and their wages go up as well, they start to have not that advantage in terms of cost, because again, cost of living there is very affordable. Like everything was super cheap, so if you didn't make a lot, I think it was still, you could still afford to live.
You can still have a decent life, yeah.
A reasonably good life, yeah.
I think
What
their
do we learn from them,
demographic
though?
collapse is real.
Yeah,
Like that, the math is the math on that. So
they wouldn't let people have more than one kid for 30 years, 40 years.
The
like
pure labor force is going to go through a massive reduction, not even just within our lifetimes, like within the next 20 years.
yeah,
With that, I think their ability to clone, to innovate, and to execute, to actually build, they stand a very, very strong chance of maintaining the industrial base, the manufacturing base for the world. If we were to decide, we will learn from you, we will not do it the same, and we will not be the world's manufacturing base. However, we want more flexibility and more independence within these realms. I think, one, it goes back to the same thing that we say all the time: we have to build. But secondarily to that, get a little bit more creative with our definitions of success, in that if these factories that we build are dark factories, meaning there's not a single light bulb on, that's fine. Because we are still making the tooling and the capacity and the capabilities necessary to run certain things within our own economy and a bit more independently. Or going back to one of the benefits that you guys were trying to hang on to, which was this sort of like rate of innovation, or rate of a tighter feedback loop, because your facilities are local rather than halfway across the world. I think leading into that vision, it is going to be a different vision than the 1985 Ford worker, but accepting that like the world is changing, everything is changing, and we're gonna be part of that change rather than refusing that change, which necessitates means that crashes upon your shore, much less in a much less controlled manner than you would like.
Yeah, well said. I think the things that we need to think about imitating are the things that won't necessarily bring back 10 million manufacturing jobs. They'll bring back
Correct.
500,000, right? It's going to
And
be
a lot of specialty jobs, high engineering jobs.
Yeah. And we need to really consider how we get better at manufacturing electronics, I think here. High-end electronics.
Even some low-end ones.
Even some
Doesn't
low-end
need to
ones.
be for consumers. I mean, that this goes back to like, sort of self-defense and military supply chains and stuff like that. It's like, it may not be fancy, but like we need some capacity, and we need to have enough skill set within where if we needed to 5x it in the next year, we could. It would be another warp speed project, but we could do it.
Yeah. We at least have some blueprint built out for how to scale this to another order of magnitude.
And enough engineers where like you can't copy and paste engineers, but you can like assign extremely smart people to a great engineer who knows how to do a thing and multiply that capacity, right?
Yeah, to some degree, absolutely.
To some degree, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they're not more efficient in what they're doing. They're just lower cost from what the things were that I personally saw it. And I don't think that anecdote. I think if I were to go see,
If anything, we are
Foxconn,
way more efficient out of necessity.
Out of necessity, exactly. Like we fought a cost battle for so long. We've made ourselves extremely efficient in many, many ways. Now, they had the ability to spend more on, I think, on CapEx in terms of some more automated equipment that then we would necessarily have the benefit to, because it's lower cost equipment there being one thing, right? They're buying some really nicely made Chinese brands that if you were to try to buy them here, it's way more costly. So the ROI isn't necessarily there for us. And in terms of competing with that type of thing on American manufacturing front, it's going to be hard to do, right? We're going to have to find spaces where it makes sense to spend capital that keeps like, and the question is, what kind of volume type of work is that? Like, you have to have a certain minimum level of volume, and what kind of components are those? Are they washers and dryers? Maybe. Like, it's got to be some consumer goods that are bought at mass, not just stuff that are used within general industry. It's got to be.
You got to hit a
goods.
certain scale in order for you to compete against the Chinese washer.
Yeah. I don't know. I think tooling, probably machine tooling, is something where there's a lot of volume that would be worthwhile maintaining a supply base up here, because that ends up going into a lot of different industries.
Yeah. And being tongue in cheek with my like capitalism joke earlier, where the government gets involved and like whatever. There's a certain amount of this where like being picky and choosy about where the government basically subsidizes the ability for this capacity and expertise to remain in country and not get 100% outsourced.
Yeah. And it's not as though we have all this capacity for a ton of extra jobs here either, right? We have to be mindful of how many truly unemployed Americans are there right now. It's elevated, but it's still not that high. It's not like
elevated from what we've gotten used to. It's not high.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were spot on saying there's going to be more layoffs this year than we've seen in a while, but it's still not as though we have a huge unemployed workforce at the moment. I think it's unstable. I think there's some risks still going forward there.
Yeah.
As you said, some of these self-perpetuating things start to happen as companies say, hey, the other companies laid off, we'd better start doing the same, so that way we can start to say, oh yeah, we're also taking cuts on costs, trying to keep our numbers good for Wall Street.
Yeah, and it's not just Wall Street. The cover story can be, they all did it too, so we're going to do it. And then we're definitely placating Wall Street. But then on the other side of it is like there are responsibilities the businesses have, and it is not to be a charity. So, not to say that 100% of, it's definitely not, it's never 100% of these things are like 100% mathematically justified. But there is an element of mathematical justification that is a part of some of these equations.
Mm-hmm.
Like if everyone's going to be tightening belts and revenue is going down.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah,
people are just getting ahead of it this time. I feel like it's ahead of cycle rather than in cycle.
We'll see. I mean, I think maybe you're right. I think it could be early cycle.
Yeah, because corporate profit, like, I don't know, from the placating Wall Street angle, it's like things are still fine. Like now you're trying to tighten your belt and make your bottom line better when we haven't seen an incredible amount of or much pain yet. Like that's just
Well, no, I'm thinking, but like also then keeping up with the Joneses in some ways, right? Of saying, oh well, so and so is able to cut 10,000 jobs because of AI, or 20,000 jobs because of AI. We'd better be able to be able to do the same in terms of our maintaining or in maybe growing our growth rate even. So then you end up with companies that say, well, let's go trim as much as we can because Meta just did too, and wanting to also show that they're recognizing gains, or that I don't know. I think you see some of that where it's why cycles happen, right? It's easier to do when everybody else is doing.
Yes, a particular behavior gets unlocked, and then a few people, a whole bunch of other people follow. Yeah,
madness of crowds, baby.
Yeah, true believer.
If everybody else is overhiring, you feel like you get how to overhire too.
That's the other side of this. I feel like is the question of, was there overhiring in 21 to 22 or 20 through 22, and then this is the hangover. This is the purge of that overhiring, and it's really not necessarily a huge signal on the direction of the economy. It's more just like you say, the organization breathes.
Yeah, self-correction on some of these things.
Self-correction,
where they had too much fat, and now there's every couple of years I think there's organizations could stand to lose a couple of people, right? It's just you need to have some people leave through attrition or through forced attrition to, I think, keep
things healthy, attitudes adjusted.
Yeah,
people picking up litter rather than just walking by it.
Yeah, because there are people that are in an organization that might start off great that end up becoming not a great employee after a while. And
I think I've been guilty of that. I think I started off, and one of the places I worked, it was just gung ho, had an awesome time, and then the pressures of all of it, including my life and just all the different things coagulated together to me not being what I had been, and it all worked out. It was fine. Like I didn't get pushed out. I made change, but
Made change? Good.
I made change. Yeah, totally. But that change was it was bigger than perhaps just an attitude adjustment could have extended my, lifetime at that particular employer. Could have been.
Yeah.
Because it's not just so much that like, was I really bringing myself to my employer? It was more like, was my relationship in my head with the employer such that like I couldn't, maximize myself, right? Like if I had just retooled this real quick, then the whole relationship would have changed. It was all inside my own head, right? Not all of it. Let's be real. It's not all of it, but yeah.
Some of it.
Yeah. Enough of it.
Good part
right?
of it.
Like,
Enough of it. Yeah, enough of it for it to significantly matter and impact the outcome, for sure. I was going to say something, and then I forgot, Dan.
Okay. Should we call it?
I think, man, we've been at it for a while. Yeah, it's about ready. Got to go get on with other things today. I know I'm sure you got busyness with the kids getting ready for your trip to Portland, was it, later this week?
Yep, to Portland for a whole family get together for Christmas, and some go-karting later today.
Nice. Well, enjoy the go-karting. Hope everything is I hope you get a good one. Sometimes you get in a cart and it's like, oh man, I got the one with the yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've been in
No
that
go
dud
pedal.
a couple of times. Yeah. What is it? Like the nice high-speed ones like Andretti indoor carts or nice.
It's outside. It's at a legit track. So fire suits and helmets and the whole rest of the bit. So we'll see. I've never been, but it's really, really close to us, and I only recently found it. So I was like, we got some people together, and we're gonna go. So yesterday, a buddy of mine down the street, he and I went to the F1 arcade, which is like a bar restaurant with 40 or 50 professional level sims, and that was great fun. These are all birthday gifts. So like I did that yesterday and then the karting today. So definitely up my alley. Yeah.
It is your birthday month, isn't it? Is it
Yeah, soon. Yeah. You're only
23rd?
like what, a week and a half after me or something like that?
Yeah. Are you the 23rd?
27th.
27th. Yeah. I'm just the 6th of January. I'm just a week after that.
Yeah, okay.
Man.
Well, we're gonna have to do like a birthday, New Year, and like go over previous predictions and make new ones episode.
Absolutely.
I think that's
we
what's
had
next.
I think pretty good success rate this year, honestly.
Yeah. Well,
It's kind of depressing, but
it is. Our outlook was not super positive for 25. I don't know how much that's changed for 26, but I'm looking forward to having that discussion.
Yeah, me too. All right, well, next time.
Yeah. All right. See you, everyone. Thanks for joining.